Welcome back to the Old Dragoon. This episode is a side quest. We're going to talk about one of the greatest single games I had the honor to participate in and one of the greatest gamers I've known. This is Cortney, the very definition of what we used to call, in our teenage early 90s parlance, a theater chick. Yeah, not really an acceptable term now, but that's what we used back then. To say that her presence was something of a force of nature is far too cliche. Courtney's enthusiasm for improv theater was, both on stage and behind stage, the stuff of elemental essence. The first time I got to see her work was behind the scenes, as the stage manager in a ridiculously awesome production called Epic. And she didn't just stage manage, she juggled stage manager and being part of the repertory troupe. Epic was the brainchild of Malix Neistel, and was an improv show in which the regular cast was briefed ahead of time on the basic plot, and 4 audience members were selected to be the main heroes. The reactions of the cast and the Dungeon Master-like director were all improvised based on the prearranged plot, but no one knew how the audience players were going to react. So lots of crazy things happened. Court was in the thick of it all, managing people, costumes, props, making the show sing backstage while Malix ran the session from what was effectively the DM's booth. It was an incredible piece of interactive improv, and we went back constantly. When I met Court, she'd not yet played a role-playing game, but role-playing was in her blood. As a member of the Austin improv scene, she'd already made a name for herself as a tech wizard behind the scenes, and she began to participate in front of the audience as well as at the game table. Her characters quickly became vibrant and memorable, the kind of characters a GM loves to have at their table because they inspire other players to get into the game with that much sheer gusto. It's hard to communicate the effect Court had on a room. The enthusiasm just radiated. And that's when she suggested an idea. The TV series Leverage is on Court's list of favorites, and it is close to a Shadowrunner Cyberpunk TV series in tone, if not in setting, as I can imagine. A crew of specialists who take on various heist-like jobs to benefit the downtrodden. In one episode, the crew finds themselves opposed by a doppelganger crew, a look in the mirror. Both crews compete for the objective. Cortney proposed she take the DM's chair and run a head-to-head GURPS Cyberpunk game for 2 crews, her regular crew on one side, and a doppelganger crew that I was asked to play among, with several other good friends who weren't part of the regular group in which she played. This should have been a glorious mess. It should have been overcomplicated, hard to keep on track, maybe even too much for a new game master to handle. And yeah, there were a few issues, especially with players who liked to squeeze every bit out of a GURPS character point and knew the rules a lot better than Court did. But let me tell you this. I have never been blown away by a concept game the way I was blown away by this one. Court's skills as a stage manager came out. She had players off-site, briefed to deliver clues and directives by telephone. She had cuts and scenes pre-planned in her head to bounce back and forth between the 2 groups. She kept a mental tally of what was going on and kept the action moving in a masterful example of what a good GM can do, even when saddled with twice as many players as usual, all in competition with each other. She even managed to minimize the rules referencing, even when a couple of players in opposed roles on the 2 crews started going to paragraph X, subparagraph Y, here's how nanotech works, 3 tech levels above the game we're playing, oh now I bought access to that, didn't I tell you when I showed you my character? Wah! But Court was in control. In a situation that would have made even a veteran GM tear out their hair, or what was left of it in my own case. She kept cool, kept the story moving, and delivered an absolutely incredible gaming experience with the deftness of John Williams conducting an orchestra. Chef's kiss, 10 of 10, would definitely play again. And there's the rub. Courtney left us on 18 February 2024. Unexpectedly. I hadn't seen her in Meat Space for nearly 2 years. Last time we had lunch together in the Arboretum. The pandemic, followed by my heart issues, exacerbated by our being involved in 2 disparate groups of friends on opposite ends of Austin, just caused us to lose track of each other in real time, even while we exchanged messages electronically. Her sudden departure hit me like a ton of bricks. That radiant presence, that infectious energy, that smile that makes mischievous an understatement. I'd already been struggling with depression myself, and 3 deaths of people close to me in rapid succession, and now Court, out of nowhere, was gone. I felt like the worst friend in the world because I'd let years go by. And that feeling is still very much with me as I write and record this. My wife is, as I speak, on her way to Court's memorial with our friends. I find that I am not able to handle the thought of another goodbye this damned year in my current state. I'll certainly be no rock upon which her husband John or her other friends can lean when I'm barely standing myself in an emotional sense. I'm honoring Courtney by telling this story of how she absolutely lived to entertain at improv as a gamer and in that brilliant turn at game mastering that I'm not sure I would be able to pull off myself. It was magnificent. Courtney was magnificent. And in the spirit she embodied of driving the show forward, I will roll dice at some point this weekend and tell stories and entertain players. And you folks out there who are listening to this fledgling channel because you share an interest in tabletop role-playing. If you carry one thing away from this video, which was certainly not on my plan for the inaugural bunch of videos on this channel, let it be Courtney's fearlessness to try something different. The Leverage Cyberpunk game was certainly that, and an experience that I will always look back upon fondly and admire her for the sheer audacity of it. Never let someone tell you a thing cannot be done, or that you are too new a game master to pull it off, because I've seen it. And like my friend Courtney, it was inspirational. Thanks for listening. The next episode will drop early and we'll continue with the Dungeons & Dragons expert set. This has been the Old Dragoon. And remember, character is what you are in the dark.